And the goal ultimately, right, is to have this option available to people, but do it in a way that's safe for the riders.
It's been more than a month since electric scooters hit the streets of downtown Jacksonville, and 2 more companies are now getting in on the action. So some people love them, some people hate them because of some of the traffic issues it can cause. For now, at least, those scooters appear to be sticking around. Thank you for staying up with us. For First Coast News at 11, I'm Anthony Austin.
And I'm Heather Crawford. So there are 400 of those scooters already available for rent. Robert Bradfield joins us live from downtown tonight.
And Robert, tonight City Council got to hear from people about the program and how they feel about it.
Yeah, tonight was the opportunity for public comment at the City Council meeting about that proposal to expand the use of these scooters. However, no one shared their thoughts about that proposal that would also increase the number of companies that could be doing business in Jacksonville. But still, a final vote is expected in 2 weeks. When the sun sets, Jacksonville's downtown lights up and becomes Scooter City.
I welcome the foot traffic for sure. I just want people to be safe.
These electric scooters are growing in popularity, and the city of Jacksonville is taking notice. Council members moving a step forward to expanding the number of companies offering the rides from 4 to 6. People who work downtown, like Alexis Lior, support the idea of having something new, but warns of dangers, including using public roads and right-of-ways.
There is no traffic lane, so you're riding it at your own risk, but you need to definitely be careful.
The city is also proposing to increase how many scooters can fit into these corrals from 5 to 12, making way for more people to properly store the scooters instead of abandoning them on the sidewalks or in the grass.
That first month, there's definitely a feeling out period.
Spin, one of the companies doing business with the city, held this safety demonstration late last month, giving riders a feel of proper scooter handling and safety. They have no plans of slowing down.
But with the way things are progressing, this is something that we're definitely excited to continue to do moving forward.
Now, if approved, it is unclear at this point which 2 companies then would be doing business in Jacksonville. Again, we want to remind you this is a 1-year pilot program, and the city has an opportunity to reevaluate this program at the end of that 1 year. But I did speak with some council members who say they want to keep these scooters here permanently. We're live downtown tonight. Robert Bradfield, First Coast News, on your side.